I'm Sonny Liston, I'm Jack Dempsey, there's no one like me. I'm from Naircross. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous, my defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious, I want your heart, I want to eat his children. I was gonna rip his heart out, I'm the best ever.
Alright, another episode of the Boxed Out Podcast. Not much happening as usual in the boxing world during the summer.
Man, we missed
a lot of bad fights, a lot of uninspiring fights, a lot of boring fights.
Is that right?
It's so boring that so many guys decided to retire. Klitschko, Bradley, Marquez. Who else retired? Who am I missing?
I think Roach is trying to get Pacquiao to retire.
Pacquiao is probably going to retire. Just all around retirement.
Mayweather has been retired.
Mayweather has been retired. He's currently on a retirement tour. Yeah, just so many retirements.
Postall, I think he retired.
Postall retired.
He hasn't fought in a long time.
Oh, yeah.
I would think he retired.
So many.
Or maybe
people.
Maybe he was kidnapped. I don't know.
So yeah. So that's why there are no. Oh, what else? What else am I thinking about? Last week we had the week before we had another boring Lomachenko fight. You know.
So what did you think about that fight?
You can put that on when you're trying to go to sleep. Very boring. Which transitions us nicely to Terence Crawford. Because similar to Lomachenko, Terence Crawford is a guy probably not fighting in his weight division. He can make the weight. But he shouldn't be fighting at 140.
Why? I mean, if you can make the weight, why not fight in the division?
You can fight at whatever weight you can make and dominate. But in terms of putting out a good product where, anyone really gives a damn or wants to pay to see it happen, yeah, no.
So
let's go. Let's go all the way back to July 2016, when Terence Crawford beats Victor Postol. Right?
Embarrasses him.
The number 2 guy.
Clown.
The number 2 guy in the division.
Right.
At that point, your time at this division is over. But since then, he's fought John Molina Jr., another clowning.
Excellent fight.
Felix Diaz, another clowning.
Sensational.
And now he's fighting Indongo.
Julius Indongo.
The guy who, on his resume, the only name that I can even see is a good name is Ricky Burns.
Okay.
So this is set up to be just another clowning by Crawford. Why is he sticking around at 140? What are we waiting for?
Well, it's interesting that you say that because he's sticking around. Hold on. He's sticking around at 140 for hashtag all the belts, hashtag history.
But no one gives a shit. No one cares about that.
Well, hey, let me tell you why. Because the IBF, the WBA, the WBC, and the WBO belts will all be on the line at the Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln, Nebraska. So it'll be a coronation of such. It'll be like when the Warriors won the championship at home. This is what this fight is for Terence Crawford. It should be a great night, and the crowd's going to be really excited.
So that's a great example. In another sport, another champion in another boring matchup would excites no one with no challenges.
Well, but they're so great in their individual performances.
There's no need for this fight. Especially when you're sitting around with Joe Horn, who has a welterweight belt. Why the hell are you fighting at 140?
Well, I don't know if you've been on the boxing web feed, but Pacquiao is getting his rematch.
Yeah, Pacquiao's getting it, but I don't mean specifically for that belt. I mean, when you look up and you're
just saying
a guy like Joe Horn can win a welterweight title, why are you fighting at 140? There's nothing Terence Crawford, even if, let's say he loses this fight, right, at 140, right. That's not going to change how I feel, how anyone feels about Terence Crawford. He's done everything at that division. He's the best guy at that division by far. You can't tell me another guy at 140 who I would honestly pick over Terence Crawford. So what are we wasting our time here for? What's the point?
Well, look, his trainer Bomac is saying that I don't believe there's been a unified champion ever at 140 pounds. So this is a historical footnote that Terence Crawford is looking to create. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, I wouldn't pass up on it to be a unified champion at 140. Why not?
I guess.
I mean, but look, it's a home fight for Crawford, a favorable opponent, and he's gonna have that little footnote in history, and I'm pretty sure he's getting paid a decent amount for it, and it's gonna be an ESPN main event, so he's gonna be on open and subject to a bigger audience. I don't see the loss here, and if he's staying active, then I have no problem with this fight. There's with you, I don't think it's necessarily your points coming from that he needs to move up. I mean, yes, he should move up, but to me, like you said, you referenced Jeff Horn, a relative unknown who has a belt. It's not about moving up to 147. You want him to just be in a marquee matchup. That's what you want, and that's what some other fans want. Correct?
Big name. Fight a big name.
Do you want to see him at or do you just want to see him at a physical?
No, I'm saying that, and I've said
disadvantage.
I've said this for years. At 140, he's physically bigger than these guys. I mean, so just like Lomachenko, his weight class, being supremely talented is one thing, but being in a division in a weight class where physically no one can really kind of test you because you're just too big and too fast for everybody. I mean, at that point, we're not watching competition. We're just watching the guy practice. I don't want to watch that shit. And to your point, like, I watched a couple rounds of Lomachenko fight, then I turned that shit off. Like, because I don't want to watch that. That shit is boring. I'm sorry.
Well, you missed out because Lomachenko did some real cool dancing in the corner.
Oh, yeah, he did some dancing, and he tapped the guy on the head. And waved Crawford, the guy on.
Crawford,
and he said,
you
didn't hurt me. And it's like no one wants to watch this garbage. Like, it's time for some marquee matchups. Let's go. You talk about history? You know what guys do in history? They step up above their weight class, and they fight bigger names, better fighters, and that's how you really make history. Like, looking back on it, like, is anybody gonna give a shit if Crawford unifies all the belts at 140 against Indongo, some guy that no one's ever heard of? No one cares. No one cares.
Whoa. Well, look, I watched an interview with his trainer.
I will prove a point to you. I'll prove this point to you. If I gave you two options, right? In two options you had to choose from to watch on TV on Saturday, right? Crawford against Indongo to unify all these belts, right?
Right.
Or Crawford against Broner, just in a whatever matchup. Which fight would you watch?
Give me the Indongo fight because I'm done with Adrian Broner.
Which fight would you watch? Don't lie. Be honest.
No, seriously.
You would watch the Broner fight. I would
watch the Indongo fight.
All right, you would. What would get better numbers?
Obviously. Look, we get it, okay?
That's all I'm saying. Like, come on, man. Come on.
And then also, too, I agree. You bring up a good point. I mean, it's an obvious point, obviously. But, this is boxing, okay? And that's just not how it works sometimes. We don't get the fights that we want all the time.
And
we have to settle a lot.
Fight Mikey Garcia. He's coming off a big win. Let's do it.
All right. Well, it's interesting that you say that because his trainer, he did say that, after they unified, the goal at 140 pounds is complete, but they would stick around and are open to a fight with Mikey Garcia. But then he also went on to say, there's still Amir Imam at 140 and Progress at 140, who's like a prospect.
No, I saw Regis Progress. He was on Showbox for like 5 seconds and he destroyed somebody.
Yeah, he's been on Showbox a lot. He's a promising fighter.
That's a guy who is trying to, if all things go right, get to where Crawford is now. Why is Crawford going back and fighting these guys who are up and Crawford's already established his foundation. It's time to bigger and better things. Why am I managing Terence Crawford's career better than the people who manage his career? Seriously. Let's go.
Well, I don't know if you'd be able to have leverage to get him a fight on ESPN. I'm just not sure about that.
I'm just saying, like, I would be telling him I wouldn't be talking about no Regis Progress and who else did you say? At 140?
Amir Imam.
And Amir Imam. I mean, no, Crawford. People know.
Well, at that point,
people know who you are.
If they were going to stick around for a fight, beating down Adrian Broner and knocking him out probably would help them. But I don't think they would ever fight. I think they were playing basketball a couple months ago, so I think they're cool.
I was just making a point about the so-called significance of unifying the titles. Look, we're talking about ratings, dollars, asses in seats, eyes in front of TV, in front of televisions here. Like,
okay,
come on.
It's interesting. Well, the way you're thinking, I don't think other critics or pundits are thinking maybe as harshly as you. Probably so, because boxing fans.
Well, I'm not a pundit. That's your job. I just come on. I just press record. I don't give a crap about history. I'm not a journalist. I don't care. I just want to be entertained. Which
you
is
do
why,
care about a little bit of history.
Which is why I turned off the Lomachenko fight started too late, right? So I missed the first round. I watched a couple rounds. I was like, you know what? This is garbage. I'm out. I've seen this before. He's twice the size of this guy. No, thank you.
Well, Mariaga was moving up. But anyway, so you just throw me off track with your negativity, man.
Negativity.
You always want to get on me.
I'm negative about first of all, time is precious, right? I mean, nobody has time to be wasting watching garbage fights. So if you're gonna be on a marquee network, primetime spot, you gotta fight somebody a bigger name than Indongo. Come on.
So, but what about because this is the introduction to Terence Crawford to a wider audience, because HBO is a premium-based cable network, limited to only a million homes, something like that. I don't know the exact numbers. I don't know how many subscribers they have, but even in the case with Lomachenko as well, wouldn't you want your best guy to look as fantastic and as great as possible in front of a big audience?
Yes.
To, project his name further out into the...
but then this is where the disconnect comes.
To the world.
This is where the disconnect comes, right? Because for actual boxing fans, who are the only people who listen to this podcast, we've already seen that for years on HBO. So now we have to see it again on ESPN. No, thank you. I'm good.
That's true. But, I mean, how do you... Well, let me just state this first. I do kind of feel like a lot of people have that feeling that you have, probably like the nonchalant attitude towards this fight, because, I watch ESPN, or I don't watch it intently, but, it's background noise for me as I'm trying to get ready for work or, do anything of importance. I haven't seen any advertisements for this fight yet. Any commercials, any like Sports Center features. I mean, I'm sure they'll roll one out, because they did roll one out for Lomachenko a couple of days before the fight, but it's not as intent and it's not as forceful of advertisement as we saw for like the Horn and the Pacquiao fight.
Right.
Which is important, because, Pacquiao's an older name, and you would think that with ESPN in conjunction with Top Rank, they would have more of a incentive to push a newer face, a newer star, if they're going to be possibly in the business of televising his future fights. So I haven't seen an ad for ESPN yet. I went on the ESPN website, because one of the issues that you talked about with the Lomachenko fight was that it started too late. And then one of the issues that they had was that they had on ESPN, they had the Hall of Fame, the NFL Hall of Fame ceremony, and the speeches ran kind of long, and the telecast didn't start when it was supposed to start. So I tried to look up to see on Saturday night if Crawford would have to deal with any of those type of issues with the fight starting late. And when I looked, I don't know if I looked right, but I didn't even see Terence Crawford's fight listed on August 19th on ESPN. So if the people can't even go online and see what time the fight started, maybe I was messing around. I don't know. The computer's moving slow.
Like, if you're running, like, obviously you can't control how long people are going to give a speech for if it go, and NFL is the number one product, right? But once that is done, you can do some stuff to speed it up. So that stuff was done, and then they go to the Lomachenko fight.
They did have an undercard fight too. So would you have wished that they had just scrapped the Beltran fight?
No. You have to show the two fights, but all the stuff they're showing. They run the preview, they run the full intro, all this. At that point, you gotta wisen up. Like, yeah, you're trying to get people to get into Lomachenko, but they also have to be awake to get into Lomachenko. So maybe we skip that. Maybe we skip that and just go right to the fight, because you got to think on your feet here instead of starting to fight at midnight on the East Coast.
That's true, and it seems like I don't know if this is just Top Rank, or because it seems like we had these similar issues on HBO, and where they just start the fights too late. Where Showtime, they seem to start the fights a little bit earlier, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. But.
So then
I don't know. We're getting off. We're getting off top. We're talking about one of the best pound for pound fighters in the world.
And this is on topic, because we're talking about how there's no buzz for the fight, as was the case for his last fight against Felix Diaz.
Because of the first 10 minutes that we just talked about, and there's no buzz for the fight because he's fighting a guy that no one's ever heard of, unless you're a super hardcore boxing fan. That's why there's no buzz for this fight.
Right. And then here's another thing. I Googled Terence Crawford versus Indongo, and there weren't a lot of listings, When I Googled Terence Crawford, I didn't get a lot of articles. So I went on Boxing Scene, which is, a boxing heavy website, right?
Right.
And you know how Boxing Scene's format is on their website. It's kind of plain.
Yeah.
You got to really read the print. The article headlines, the links are kind of small. So I didn't feel like doing that. So all I did this little trick that we call Control F, and I put in Crawford's name, and there was only 2 listings of Crawford's name on the front page. One was an article, and one was a interview with his trainer. So, Boxing Scene only has Crawford's name listed 2 times on the front page, and we're 1 week out from, considered pound for pound number 1 or 2 or 3 in the world, and they're not even covering this fight as intently as maybe they should be, right?
Yeah.
So, that's not a good thing. But I know that you said no one ever heard of Indongo, correct?
Oh, now you're going to give me the Wikipedia on Indongo. Hold on. Let me break out my pillow so I can take a nap. Jesus Christ.
But we do. We are a boxing podcast, We do want to educate the fans some, right?
Not really. No, not when it comes to a guy who's about to get dominated and get his head tapped on for 12 rounds. Well, maybe this background that I give you, it'll show you that why this is going to happen and why it will happen next week. Look, he's only 22-0, and he's 34 years old, so he's already up there in age. He does have a 71-inch reach. He's pretty long. He's a long fighter. He's very nimble on his feet. He has some good bounce. Almost in the way how when he fought Postal, how Postal had good movement, right? Right.
He had pretty good legs for a big guy. So I think those will pose similar problems. Probably not as well. It wasn't a problem for Crawford because he dominated Postal, but he's a southpaw too, which I'm not sure that is even a problem because Crawford doesn't seem to care about whether you're southpaw or conventional or whether he's switching or not. Another thing. A big eyesore, though, is that 20 of his 22 fights have been in his home country of Namibia.
Yes, that is Namibia. Beyond a big problem.
Yeah, his last 2 fights were his world title fights. He fought Tronowski and got like this big upset win. It was a knockout. That was in Russia, and the fight against Ricky Burns was in the UK. So, although he doesn't have a lot of experience traveling the world, in his 2 biggest fights, he stepped out of his home country and he delivered good performances and won 2 belts. So I think you do have to give a little bit credit to him there in that respect. And then just a couple other things about his style. He's like a long fighter. He's really lanky.
Right.
And he fights at a distance. When I watched the Burns fight, he fought at a distance, but it's almost like he fights at too much of a distance because even with his long reach, fighting the much shorter Ricky Burns, he was reaching a lot, which was kind of weird. It's like he couldn't gauge his distance just right. Normally, if you're a tall, rangy fighter, you want to have just the right amount of distance so you can get on the edge or the extension on your shots with those long arms. But it always seemed like he was reaching against Burns. And then he seemed really predictable in his approach against Ricky Burns, I guess, because Ricky Burns isn't that great of an opponent and you can get away with that. All he was really doing was shooting his jab and throwing his left hand to the body or upstairs. He really didn't change his approach up the whole fight. And then like I said, he reaches a lot and he's going to be leading and he's aggressive. But if you're aggressive and you're leading, you're playing right into the wheelhouse of Terence Crawford, who is he's just going to pick you apart. So I believe he's like a huge underdog, obviously in Vegas. And I think he's fast and he's nimble. He's athletic, so maybe he could present a couple of problems to Crawford. But I think Crawford's going to be able to. Crawford's just a complete fighter, so I think he'll be able to counter him. And if he hurts him, Crawford will close the distance and walk him down and finish him. You haven't even seen any highlights of Indongo, right?
I didn't even know who this guy was until about 3 weeks ago. I have not been compelled. Excuse me, I just woke up from that nap from you telling me about Indongo.
Well, Wow. I mean, I just gave you a cool little rundown on this guy. You know, I spent some time out of my day to educate you.
Give me.
You should be thankful, goddammit.
All right, give me your prediction on how many rounds he lasts.
You know what? I'm not sure. I've only watched 2 fights, and you know he took a couple of shots, but I don't know how good his chin is, and we know Crawford can crack. So, I mean, Crawford didn't. I don't know. I think this will 10 rounds. I'll go Crawford by TKO 10 rounds.
All right,
but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't want to shortchange Indongo, who's obviously come a long way. And they're looking to unify. The last person to have all the belts was Jermaine Taylor, I believe. That's what I read online, somewhere along the line. So this is historical.
So
Jermaine
Crawford,
Taylor was a good fighter.
Maybe you might want to lose this fight, seeing how it worked out for Jermaine Taylor. All right.
So what did you have to say? Well, we want to wrap this up, so this is done. What is your prediction for the fight? Will you? Okay, let me ask you. Will you
might
even
not
watch the whole fight?
I might not watch the fight. Yeah, that's it. That's my prediction.
You know what's a little troubling too is that Paulie Malignaggi versus Conor McGregor has gotten more spark and debate.
Let's just talk a few minutes about Mayweather and McGregor, because this is how bad and boring boxing has been this summer.
And then I want to pay a little bit of respect for the last couple of minutes.
No, you pay your respect now. Go ahead.
Okay, well, look, Klitschko retired, goddammit. How do you feel about it?
Klitschko was awesome. He's a true champion. Everybody, including myself, always hating on him for being too conservative and his fights being boring. But at the end of the day, and I always said this, he fought everybody in his division. He cleaned them out. I mean, no one came close. No one came.
Yeah,
it took him being
ridiculous.
41 years old and going 11 rounds with the youngest, fiercest guy in the division for someone to stop his reign, basically.
And pretty much the biggest power puncher in all of boxing.
Yeah, the Fury fight, as bad as that was, and as bad as a loss that was a loss. I don't know how to articulate this, but Fury, the loss, it's a stain on his career, but anyone who watched that fight, I think just mentally said, well, if he threw literally one more punch, he would have won the fight. That's how bad that fight was. It was a fight that he lost. He didn't really get beat. He kind of just handed the fight over. So, and then we saw what happened with, Fury's career after that. So, as bad as the stain,
there was no career after that.
Yeah, and I mean, even at that point,
and then still Klitschko tried to hunt him down for the rematch.
Yeah, and at that point, we're still talking about the end of Klitschko's reign. And before, close to a decade, I mean, he was just the dominant force in heavyweight boxing. And so much so that it wasn't televised, that it was always a challenge to get it televised here because there's no point. So,
exactly.
And it's a little different when we're talking about guys at 140 who should move up or Lomachenko should move up. There's really no moving up when you're heavyweight. That's it. There's nowhere else to go. So, he did what he had to do, which is always beat the guys who were put in front of him, and he held the belts. And, I would have liked to seen him fight Anthony Joshua again, but, he went out like a champion, I would have liked to see him fight Wilder, maybe once. I'd like to see him fight a couple guys, give him a go. But, he's 41. He's the end of his career. He did everything. There's nothing left to do, He went
and
out
those
like
guys. The thing that those guys just weren't really around in his prime, and that's not really his fault,
Yeah, you can only fight who's around in your prime.
Given his track record, he would have fought in those guys earlier, and he would have still been a huge problem for all of those guys and probably knocked them all out, in all honesty. I'll say this. One of the true marks of greatness is when you just want to see the guy lose. And he reigned for so long and was so dominant that it was just like, when I would tune in, I was like, why am I watching this? What is the point? There's nobody that's even near or around his level that could stop him,
Yes.
And his style wasn't particularly, fun to watch. But, he was clinical, and it's a great testament that to his patience and, his dedication to fighting his type of a fight. And, as you said, all we want to see was him tested. I didn't even want to ever really see him lose. I think it was more of just seeing him in a compelling fight just to see what he's made of. And, obviously he had shown that before coming back from knockout losses. But just at 41 years old, the effort he gave, and probably what will go down as the event and the fight of the year, in my opinion, Just hats off to Klitschko. Incredible career.
Also, just throw it out there. My boy Gamboa got a win last night.
Oh,
majority decision.
Did he get dropped? Maybe.
Details are sketchy. We just know that he won.
So Marquez retired.
Marquez retired.
Go ahead, say something about Marquez. No, because we're never going to talk about him again.
Well, we can talk about Marquez. I can talk about Marquez Pacquiao 4. I can have a weekly podcast on that.
Are we going to have a Marquez podcast? I doubt it. With your work ethic when it comes to some of this podcast and stuff, I don't know.
Marquez, I mean, everybody got on him because they said he was roided for the Pacquiao fight, yourself included.
Right.
My stance on that is always pretty simple, which is the same way they do in baseball. Either you're gonna let them all in the Hall of Fame, or you're gonna keep them all out. So if we're if we're getting on Marquez, then there's some other guys. I don't know, maybe his main rival, who people have questioned the same. But we give other people the benefit of the doubt. But Marquez, we just want to say, oh, he was on roids. That's why he lost the fight. That's why he won the fight.
Well, no,
I always felt that was really unfair and really, really, really cynical and unsophisticated argument against Marquez, because it's like you don't do the same shit for other people, and the same examples you're giving of Marquez, I can give to other people.
That's very true. No, but obviously, look, he fought him 4 times, and you can argue he won the 3rd fight. A lot of people felt he won the 3rd fight. The 2nd fight was razor close. That's no knock to him. That was one of the best rivalries in boxing, and the Marquez Pacquiao 4 fight was and still is, for bang for your buck, probably the best pay-per-view main event we've seen. Am I right or am I wrong?
Recently, yes.
No, just in.
Not ever. Period. No, I mean, come on. Well, not ever. There's been bigger
from the 2000s on.
Yeah, maybe
pay-per-view fights. On.
Yeah,
competitive, significant pay-per-view fights.
I said recently. You're saying all time. I'm not looking at the all-time list right now. All right. Yes, but recently, yes, definitely.
And then what I loved about Marquez is that his combination punching was out of this fucking world. Just insane combination punching, excellent counter puncher, and the guy never was stopped, always got off the deck to come back and, not necessarily win the fight, but just give a great effort.
What I loved about Marquez is that, unlike a lot of fighters, right, he always, within a fight, not just picking an opponent, within a fight, he would always change his approach that was counter to his nature in order to meet the moment and try to win the fight. It wasn't his nature to be as aggressive, but he had to when he fought Pacquiao. It wasn't his nature to be as aggressive when he fought, when he was going to war with Juan Diaz, when Juan Diaz was, still in his prime, or, even, the Barrera fight. And this is like, but he adjusted his style, even though it wasn't really his style, to meet the moment. And that's a true sign of greatness.
Yeah, he always wanted to answer back. And, yeah, I mean, credits to him and credits to Pacquiao because, I mean, yeah. It's hard to get guys to fight one time, let alone 4 times.
And, you're always giving Pacquiao, Marquez shit about not fighting him 5 times. Dude, they fought 4 times. Like, first of all, you're not remembering. I would have liked to seen it. You're not remembering the fucking fatigue when they announced the 4th fight. Going into that fight, no one wanted to see that shit. They're like, what's the point? We know what's gonna happen. So 4 times was already one too many for everyone.
Well, you guys need to do your history on Sugar Ray Robinson.
Yeah, he's fighting guys to give them financial favors. Like, Marquez is good financially. Pacquiao is good financially. That fight for Marquez, was about proving a point to himself and settling a score for himself. And regardless of what anybody says, to him, I mean, he settled that score for himself. He closed that chapter for himself. He goes out with the win against Mike Alvarado. And then he kind of kicks the bucket around for a couple of years. Will he fight? Will he not fight? He probably made the right decision. He definitely made the right decision not coming back now. I mean, he's way too old to be still getting in there and risking it. But, yeah, just all around just a great cerebral fighter who you can see always, thinking in the ring. And even when it wasn't to, physically, he didn't match the guy. He always matched him, between the ears. And, yeah, he was fun to watch.
Yeah, it was too late to come back because I know a lot of people see what Hopkins does, but Hopkins always stayed active. Yeah. If you're taking long breaks like Marquez and Klitschko, you're might not look as good. So anyway, what about Tim Bradley? 2 seconds on Tim Bradley.
Oh God, Tim Bradley. Maybe the skill-wise and the power-wise wasn't, elite always, right? He wasn't like on the Mayweather or Pacquiao level, but no one worked harder than him. So whatever dip you may say, oh, he's not as good as this guy, he's not as strong as this guy, he made up for it by just outworking guys. And there's so many fights where his will, it couldn't be overcome. And, best example of that is the Provodnikov fight where he was getting all the criticisms for the bad decision against Pacquiao. He went to war with the guy he could have won boxing for 12 rounds, similar to what Chris Algieri did to Provodnikov. And he just went to war, and he put his life on the line, literally. And, he'll be missed. I definitely thought he could have had maybe 2 or 3 more fights in him. It kind of sucked that he never fought Mayweather. I always thought that would have been a good matchup just because athletically he could always I felt he's the one guy who could step for step be there with Floyd. But, it is what it is. The politics getting away a big fight, so, he'll be missed.
He will be missed.
I mean, he's not dead, but,
Yeah.
we'll miss watching him fight. Just a couple minutes on Mayweather-McGregor, because, again, this is how bad boxing is this summer. I actually watched All Access between these two. To McGregor's credit, right, the one thing I will give him credit for, he is taking this very seriously in training.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Have you seen him on the mitts?
Yeah, but
Have you seen him on the bag?
we're talking about effort. We're not talking about technique and all that stuff. He's taking it very seriously. Floyd took a vacation during training camp to go to Miami to ride bikes and shoot jump shots. Floyd works his ass off. He's always in shape. I mean, I'm sure Floyd is thinking he can beat this guy with his eyes closed and the hand tied behind his back. But you can see Floyd's really not breaking a sweat over this fight at all. I don't even know. I'm not going to watch the fight. I'll watch it the next day on YouTube or wherever. I don't know what to say about this fight. I mean, based on the media day workouts, I hope those were gags and stunts to give Floyd some false confidence. McGregor's technique didn't look that great, to say the least. I don't know. I mean, all the beef now is between him and Paulie because, Paulie sparred with them and they released some unflattering, clips of him and Paulie sparring and the photo and all this other crap. And it's like
I said, Paulie versus McGregor has been the biggest story of boxing.
But
this
it's
week.
like, it's just such a weird way to try to build up hype for a fight by, getting into it with a retired boxer.
An announcer. And
you know what? It wouldn't kill you to release the full sparring thing because I'm sure people, let's say Paulie, from Paulie's, you say he won the sparring sessions, right?
He said he won 10 of 12 rounds is what Paulie is saying.
Yeah, so.
Which wouldn't be bad to show that. I think.
So show that because, I mean, Paulie didn't knock him out. So what's the worst that could happen? I think it would actually be more promotion and better promotion and get people more hype to actually see kind of sparring in a boxing ring than to see, these little clips that make him look good and try to stoke the flames of, he's going to knock Floyd out. It's like, let's see him box. I'd be interested. It would get more of the cash because this is what they need to realize. They already have the casuals and that audience locked in, which is why Floyd says in 36 minutes he's going to make $300 million. Right? Those people are already going to buy the fight regardless of what you show and put on the internet, right?
Yes.
The only audience left to grab is the hardcore fans like me who have zero interest in this fucking circus. So throw some stuff out there that we might be interested in, which is this guy actually boxing. Let's see what he looks like. Well,
you'll be able to watch it. You just going to have to pony up $100 for it.
No, thank you. I think the big
Are we going to promise the fans a Mayweather versus McGregor preview?
This is it. So enjoy it. The biggest, I don't know, maybe we'll see. The biggest, well,
hell, you don't give a shit about the pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. So come on.
The biggest error I think they made was how they handled the Paulie situation. That according to Paulie, that Berto was scheduled to go spar with McGregor yesterday, and he canceled it just because he didn't want to be involved in, any being used basically.
Circus.
Yeah, being used for promotional purposes. I mean, I know boxing fans always make a joke of Berto, right, and his faux shoulder roll he put on when he fought Guerrero and Victor Ortiz, and I think one of those fights he busted out the Floyd impersonation. But in terms of just a sparring partner, I thought that would have been a much better comparable to Floyd than Paulie would. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, no, I agree. And he'll have, not to disrespect Paulie, but he'll face a guy with actual punching power. And Floyd doesn't have punching power, but he's accurate. So accuracy is kind of equivalent to maybe the punching power of a Berto. And then, I know it's just a straight cash grab, obviously, because, if he was real serious, he would have took like a year off to train for this fight, Yeah. And I don't know about his team, but he would have employed like actual boxing trainers. I would have liked to have seen him even bring in like a Robert Garcia or Abel Sanchez, somebody to just show him how to properly deliver a punch,
Even though it's just promotion and, it would just been a money grab when he threw it out. Even bringing in Freddie Roach, right? An actual, a freaking Hall of Famer, every year trainer of the year trainer, right? Even though Freddie would be just talking a lot of crap, and that would have been a great move because that's what he needs. That's what he, to give him, a good shot.
I'm sure,
because he's just trying to land a knockout punch. That's it. He's just trying to land a knockout punch and knock Floyd out, right?
And I'm sure his training staff is good, because he's the top fighter in MMA. So I don't want to shortchange him, but this is a totally different sport.
I'm not saying change the trainers you have. I'm saying add to them. I mean, Terence Crawford has 3 trainers. Canelo has 2 trainers. Like just add someone to the team.
That's very true.
Yeah, but
we'll get into this more as when we get the official McGregor Mayweather podcast.
No, but the only risk I see bringing Berto into camp to spar with them, which is probably a silver lining, is
he knocked him out.
Berto could have knocked him out because Berto can crack. I mean, people people clown Berto a lot now. Whatever. Berto's especially when you're talking about a guy who's never fought professionally in boxing. Berto probably
that's still a tough fight.
Yeah, Berto probably would have knocked him out of sparring. So probably a good sign that Berto canceled those plans.
But enough. Let's not give him too much, man, because we got to make him. We got to give him the official podcast.
Yeah, we'll see.
Sure.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
All right. Thanks a lot.